stand. Spirit of Jesus, open our hearts to live and to love the gospel of the Lord.
Heart to Heart, a Catholic media ministry, presents an inspiring gospel reflection by Father Michael Sparrow. Father Michael is a Jesuit priest working as a writer and retreat master at the Bellarmine Jesuit Retreat House outside Chicago.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written through the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people, Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage." After their audience with the king, they set out, and behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. When they had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. They stayed there until the death of Herod, that what the Lord had said through the prophet might be fulfilled. "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been deceived by the Magi, he became furious. He ordered the massacre of all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity, 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he ascertained from the Magi. Then was fulfilled what had been said through Jeremiah the prophet. "A voice was heard in Ramah, sobbing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be consoled, since they were no more." The Gospel of the Lord. Wow, that's quite a gospel, isn't it? Matthew chapter 2 puts together two accounts that are separated when we read them liturgically. The joy of the Epiphany is juxtaposed with the horror of the slaughter of the innocents. What are we to make of this? Joy and deep sorrow placed side by side within the same chapter of Matthew's Gospel. And yet, isn't that true to life? Joy and sorrow often come marching into our lives side by side. If we wait for a time of perpetual peace, we'll be waiting until the second coming of Christ. Part of the discipline of our faith is the ability to celebrate the joy without waiting for the other shoe to drop, to live in the present moment. I believe the Holy Family did that. They rejoiced with the visit of the shepherds and the Magi, and they took to flight when it was time to flee Bethlehem. There's a tradition that the gifts of the Magi helped to support them when they fled as refugees. I was struck by looking at the New York Times review of this past year in pictures, of how many of the pictures had to do with the refugee crisis, especially the refugees fleeing Syria and seeking safe haven throughout the world, but especially in Europe. I'm sure you've been reflecting, as have I, on the fact that the Holy Family were political refugees. Because King Herod was the legal ruler, he controlled the army, and he sent his soldiers to do his bidding. Only through angelic intercession was the Holy Family warned to flee to Egypt, probably to Alexandria, where there was a large Jewish settlement. But what of all those mothers and fathers who lost their sons when no angel woke them in the middle of the night to warn them to flee? Did God love them any less? It's at this time that I find it so consoling to remember that Jesus is truly Emmanuel, God with us, meaning he's with us in all the joy and all the sorrow of our life. As I've said so often, the human heart can endure just about anything if we know we are not alone in our grief. This divine union is what gives meaning and strength to us in all of our own suffering. It's the answer that our Christian faith gives in the face of senseless slaughter, of legalized injustice, of the violations of human dignity. God stands outraged at injustice, and God weeps with us in our hour of agony. God fled with the Holy Family to Egypt, and God stayed behind to mourn the loss of so many young. God stands with us in our hour of need. We are not alone. Emmanuel, our suffering has meaning. Sometimes there are angels from on high to warn us, and sometimes there are not. As a child, Jesus was spared the sword of Herod's wrath. As an adult, he would face the agony of the cross. Certainly, this story calls us not to turn a blind eye to the sorrows of our time, but to reach out to those in need and to do what we can to protect the innocent and to minister to those in need. I'm reminded of some beautiful words that St. Pope John Paul II wrote. Peace is a value of such importance that it must be proclaimed anew and promoted by all. There is no human being who does not benefit from peace. There is no human heart that is not uplifted when peace prevails. All the nations of the world can fully realize their interlinked destinies only if together they pursue peace as a universal value. There can only be one peace. Now, when we hear those words, we might be tempted to say, yeah, those politicians or those people over there, they need to pursue peace. But peace has to begin in our hearts. It has to begin with each one of us. Isn't it ironic that the Magi journeyed to find the Christ child and seeking that peace, and then so soon after their visitation, the Holy Family was forced to flee to Egypt on their own journey to peace? I'd invite you to reflect on the ways that all of us are called to go out of our way to visit others, to become agents. No, I think a better word is to become angels of peace. All of us are creatures of habit. And for most of us, as we get older, we become more set in our routines. And we don't like those routines disturbed. I know that's true for me. But the Magi, who were not Jews, left their homeland in search of a divine revelation, seeking that Prince of Peace. And the Holy Family left their homeland, fleeing for their life in search of peace. The question this Christmas and this New Year season, the question that this season poses is how willing are we to go out of our way to share the joy of the gospel, to make the gift of Christmas peace, of New Year's peace, real to another human being. It's not enough to simply believe that Jesus was born as Messiah 2,000 years ago if that belief doesn't impact the choices we make every day. It's not enough to believe that Jesus was born as a tiny child in a cave if we don't see the face of Christ today in what Mother Teresa called the distressing disguise of the poor, the sick, the aged, the refugees of our time, the child carried within the womb of a journeying mother. There's a poem I'd like to share with you to close this reflection. A prayer for Christmas peace. Herod's swordsmen still ravage the land. The blood of young innocents drips deep red in a sea of sorrow. Rachel's wail still haunts the land as she cries for her children. She will not be comforted. And you, O woman of sorrow, God's sword has pierced your heart that secret thoughts be laid bare. His light shines from a contradicted sign. Your child snatched from Satan's hand at midnight. Your child, our hope, you, the mother of our joy. Into this shadowland of fragile promises and broken dreams, your child has come, with straw for a bed, a cave for a home. There are only shepherd servants and foreign kings, believing unbelievers, who penetrate the mystery, who gaze past what they see to pierce this veil of fear. O child of hope, you entered our world unprotected. Face the terror of your times at a tender age as outcast, as refugee, one scurrying for life, not snuggled in blankets, nor in a palace of protection, nor in a crib of comfort, nor adorned in crimson gowns, but into our world as it is, you were born. You grew in wisdom, age, and grace. You laughed, you cried, you loved, you bled. More one of us than we to ourselves. Hidden in this mystery is divine protection, so well concealed as to be invisible to all but the gentlest of hearts. O little child, come lead us. Save us from sole recourse on self-reliance. When, like Joseph, we are awakened at midnight and told to flee. Teach us a deeper trust, a holier hope. Lead us, O little Lord, to a more Christ-filled Christmas. For only in your will is our peace. For only in your will is our peace. For only in your will is our peace. Amen. Amen.